Are you always feeling let down? Things never going your way? Then you need to visit ancient Rome and listen to Seneca. Seneca was he was actually the wealthiest man on the planet during his day in Rome. And at the end of his life he was told to commit suicide by, I think it was Nero. So he tried to slash his wrists. That didn't work because he was old and the blood flow wasn't very healthy. And he then had to sit in a hot bath, I think, for about an hour or so, and then he slashed them and it worked. But Seneca was a very wise man, and we sort of turn our noses up a little bit, or people who do, in quotes, spiritual work, turn their noses up at the people like the Stoic philosophers, but the Stoics could teach them a thing or two. Anyway, Seneca said, "No man is crushed by misfortune unless he has first been deceived by prosperity." Now, I'd generalize that. I'd say no man is crushed by misfortune unless he has first been deceived by fortune. Now, our life consists of expecting things. When you go to work, you expect to make money. When you have a relationship, you expect some kind of maybe affection, love, whatever it is in return. If there's nothing coming in return, I doubt very much you'd stay in a relationship for very long. When you get in your car, you expect it to start. Endless things we expect all day long. When our expectations are not met, then we get upset. And there are big things that happen in life, like not getting the promotion you wanted, or your partner leaving you, or poor health. Things that we never expected because we somewhat stupidly only expect things to go well. Well, the universe does not bend itself to suit our particular needs. The universe operates according to laws, and if you fall foul of those laws, then you will suffer. And the idea that whatever you want is going to happen, and when it doesn't happen, then you are justifiably upset or grumpy is just simply ridiculous. So here's a secret. In all things, and it just doesn't just apply to what we might call everyday life, it applies to spiritual practice as well, which I'll elaborate on shortly. So the secret is expect nothing. It's a great freedom if you can do that. The problem is, most of us have this causal link between doing stuff and getting some kind of reward at the end. A bit like rats you see in a box. They press a button and a bit of food drops out of a tube. That's what we're like. Go to work, get some money. Work on a relationship, get some affection back or get some appreciation back or whatever. Work on our health and we're going to be healthy. It really doesn't work like that. And of course in spiritual practice we do whatever we believe is our road to nirvana. So maybe meditation, maybe some kind of emotional discipline, maybe some devotional work. And what if nothing happens? Oh my God. You spent most of your life maybe, and nothing has happened. You're not enlightened. You are not in nirvana. I have a very good little book on Zen Buddhism, which I refer to very often. It's called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. I imagine most people might be familiar with it. And one of the pieces of advice he gives to people who practice meditation is that they should not sit there and expect something to happen. It's ridiculous to do that, because all you are doing is polluting your effort. And in fact, I remember a conversation with Rena Hans, who was a lady who knew Gurdjieff. And she always used to say to me, never work with the expectation of any results whatsoever. So, expect nothing. Now, this ability to expect nothing isn't something you can sort of magic out of thin air. I'm suggesting that that is the correct approach to life. But how do you get to that? Well, life has to do you a favor. Life has to, to be fairly sort of brutal about it, life has to kick you in the teeth a few times. You have to learn that life actually doesn't give a damn about your desires. Life, nature, has its own dynamic. And whatever that, Gurdjieff, for example, does go into some detail as to what he thinks that is, and I don't buy into those things personally just because I can't verify them. He might be right, he might not be. I really couldn't care less. But what I do know is that life is not going to shape itself just for me. And it isn't going to shape itself just for you. So many of the things that you want are not going to happen. And as you get older, and life has just stubbornly refused to give you what you want, then you'll start to learn that wanting things is a little bit silly. So in ordinary everyday life, when you feel frustrated, so for example, let's say that you're not well. So you've been unwell for a while, and you're starting to get upset about it and grumpy. Then you should say to yourself, I do not expect good health. If you can say that to yourself, then you'll be amazed at how much relief you get. I do not expect good health. I do not expect my partner to care for me and to be loyal towards me. I do not expect to get a promotion at work. Now this sort of goes against a fairly recent thing. I don't know if anybody is familiar with The Secret. The Secret was a huge commercial success for some woman from Australia, I think, because it told people that if they focus on something and think positively about it, then they will get it. So if you want to be wealthy, then you don't have to do any work. All you do is you think about it and imagine it and visualize it, and sure enough it will happen. I personally think this is a very, very cruel thing, because what it implied was that anything that happens in your life is your fault. It's your fault that your health is poor, not the fact that the food we can buy these days is heavily polluted with all kinds of crap that we could really do without. If you haven't made $1 million by the time you're 30, it's your fault. Nothing to do with the fact that You need probably to come from a privileged background to achieve that. Not always, but usually. And so people go around blaming themselves for not being able to achieve things. In fact, the woman who started this thing, I think she actually said that the great tsunami of 2004 was caused by a whole pile of people being negative. It's beyond belief that people believe that kind of thing, but they do, and that they buy into it. Anyway, to get back to the main point, what I'm saying is that by denying yourself the expectation of a reward, you are also insulating yourself from disappointment. Now, you don't have to do this, but you have to then ask yourself, well, what am I doing my work, my psychological or spiritual work, or whatever you want to call it, what am I doing it for? Well, ultimately you want joy, peace, contentment. Forget about enlightenment. Enlightenment is some kind of silly myth. At least the popular notion of it. The popular notion being that we inhabit some alternative state of consciousness where everything is fine and dandy. But that's not really... Well, I've never seen it anyway, and I've met quite a few people in the kind of work that I've done. So, since we want happiness and to experience peace and to be joyful, then we don't want negative emotions. Well, we don't want the passions. Would be a more correct phrase to use. We don't want the passions grabbing us by the neck every day because something has gone wrong, or because someone has done something that upsets us. And because we have no control whatsoever over either ourselves or what is happening in external life. And yeah, I know a lot of people will probably disagree with the first part of that, but actually you don't have any control over yourself. It's ridiculous to think that you have a will that can control what you do. But that's another thing, and actually I've already done a video on that anyway. So since you have no control over these things, it's best to regard them as things that are not particularly important. So, your health, for example. You have no control over whether this time next week or tomorrow you might be struck down with some kind of illness that's quite debilitating and so on. If you can say to yourself, I don't want health, it doesn't affect me, then when poor health comes along, you're not going to be absolutely devastated as many people are. Now, I feel I should wind this up because I could go on for a long time about this. It goes against the grain, for example, to say I don't care about good health. It really goes against the grain because at the center of every one of us is a life-affirming desire to live and to have a certain amount of power. By saying something that contradicts that, it offends something very deep within us. But this life-affirming thing that is within us does not work for our benefit. It works for the benefit of nature in general. And before I get myself into water that is too deep, I think I'll finish this.